being is part of you. It is still part of you because it was frozen in time, and you have never gone back and looked at it. But now that you are here with me looking at it, you see, you are so much more. And therefore, you can look at this original trauma. In fact, you can go into it and re-experience it. And you will not have the same experience of it as you had the first time. And then you realize that in order to be free of the trauma, you actually need to allow yourself to go inside that person that is frozen in time on the stage. And you are first apprehensive. But Mother Mary, can I ever get out of it again? And I say, but you can hold my hand the entire time. And if you cannot get out on your own, I will pull you out. That I promise you. And so you look in my eyes, and I see the shift that you determine it has been long enough that I have carried this trauma with me. And therefore, I will go into it and re-experience it. And suddenly you slip into that original character, that original person, and now you are re-experiencing a traumatic event. At this point, it may not come to you in detail, but there may be a feeling that is intense. There may be a pain, there may be a pull on you, and you allow yourself to experience it for some time. It may be a second, it may be a few seconds, it may be longer. But when you are ready, you feel that I am pulling on your hand. And as you suddenly direct your attention away from the pain, away from the trauma, and towards me, you feel how you effortlessly slip out of that character. I do not even have to pull you, because you effortlessly slip out. And again, you are like a child sitting on my lap. I am comforting you, I am holding you, and suddenly you are able to look at the situation with complete peace. You look at the situation and you realize it was just an event, like so many other events. There are so many other events on earth that have not had an impact on me, that have not defined me. And in my mind, I have made this event out to be special, to be so much worse. But it is just an event. It is just something that happened. And therefore, I realize that there are so many other events that I have just let go of. And surely, I can let go of this also. I can let go of it. I do not have to hold on to it. I do not have to grasp it anymore. It has no place in my being. I do not want it. I do not need it. I want to be free of it. I want to play in the gardens without being burdened and being pulled back towards this event. It is as if the real situation is not there anymore. It has been changed by time. It has moved totally on and is not there. It is only in my mind that it is there. It is only in my mind that it exists. But I don't want it in my mind anymore. And I have power to change my mind. I can change whatever happens in my mind. And so you suddenly get excited and you say, Mother Mary, help me be free of this. Help me be free of this entire scenario. I say, surely, I will help you. First, I need you to go back into that character that was hurt. And then I need you to love that character, to love yourself as you were back then, to love yourself as you feel that I love you. You love your reaction, and suddenly you realize that after that situation, the pain was so intense that you actually blamed yourself for reacting that way. You blamed yourself for reacting to the situation in a way that caused you pain. You blame yourself and think you should have been able to experience this situation without having pain, without reacting. But my beloved, none of us could avoid reacting to the severe trauma of taking embodiment for the first time on this planet. None of us ever could. And you do not have to. For whatever was your reaction, you can be free of it. And you can be free of it by loving the self that reacted. And as you go into that self and love it, then you feel how that character that was frozen in time suddenly begins to thaw, to melt, to become liquid. It is no longer stiff. It is no longer a hardened shell. It becomes liquid. It is flowing. And then you see that it becomes so liquid that it is suddenly a pool of liquid on the floor. And then you become aware that I am handing you a piece of cloth. And I say, wipe up the liquid and give it to me. And you wipe up the liquid from the floor and you hand me the wet cloth. And I take it into my heart chakra and transform it. And you feel how there is a burden that lifts from you. And you feel a pull on your being to go back into one of these gardens and explore the beautiful scenario. But you also become aware that even though you feel that you are somehow freer, you realize you are still on that stage because the other characters are still frozen in time. And so you look at me and ask, but why am I still here? Why are these other characters still there if they were only perceptions in my mind? And I tell you, it is because when the original trauma happened, you fixated your mind on a particular view of yourself, which is what you have just dissolved. But you also fixated your mind on a particular view of the beings who were doing this to you. And that view is still frozen in time. And therefore you need to do a little more mop-up work. And what you need to do, and which I guide you to do, is you now sit on the stage. Now you look at one character that comes to your mind, one image. It may not be detailed, but there is a sense that there is something there, and that it is dangerous, that it is a threat to you, that it wants to do you harm. But now you realize that you're not the being who was there originally. You're not afraid. You are here with me. You are free in yourself. And therefore, you can look at the image you have in your mind, the image you formed in your mind back then. You can love that image. You can send love to it. And as you do this, you see how, again, the hardened shell begins to soften, to melt, to become liquid. And again, it ends up as a pool of liquid on the stage. I give you another piece of cloth, and you again mop up the liquid, give it to me, and I consume it in my heart chakra. There may be other characters that are on the stage. And as you do this exercise again, each time a different character may come to your mind, but now you know the formula. You love it until it melts, becomes liquid, then you mop it up and you give it to me, and I consume it. There may come a time where you do this exercise and there are no more characters that come to your mind. The stage is empty. At that point you are ready to leave the theater behind. You may still do the exercise, and you may find that one of the other doors in the tunnel has a pull on you where you can go in, and you will see another stage with another scenario. But you can follow the same formula to go into that character, realize it is not you, but fill it with love, melt it, and then you can see if there are other characters, and you can realize they are also just frozen in time, and you are melting them and mopping them up, so to speak. There may come a point where you can walk through this tunnel and nothing pulls on you. Then there is no need to repeat the exercise. But I am in the first part concerned about you going back to the original trauma and truly dissolving all of the characters that hurt you in that scenario. And when you are free of the original birth trauma, it will be so much easier for you to resolve any trauma you received in any succeeding embodiment. This is why I have taken you directly to the beginning, rather than starting to dissolve some of the other traumas that may be later closer to your current embodiment, and therefore in a sense have more of a pull on you, or may even be easier in some way to dissolve. But they are not easier to dissolve if you have not resolved the original trauma, because all other traumas are related to it. They all built on it. And therefore, by going to the source, my beloved, and resolving that, we set the stage for the resolution of all else. So now I ask you to visualize that we are on the stage, and at least for now, no other character comes to your mind. And so it is time to leave the theater behind, and we again walk out the door, walk through the tunnel, and suddenly we are back, and now you are going through the birth experience again, but this time there is no pain. You do not even feel confined in the birth canal. You are suddenly back in embodiment as a little child sitting on my lap. And you may stay on my lap as a meditation for as long as you like before you complete this exercise and give the final invocation. I will hold you for as long as you desire, until you feel you are ready, you are whole, you are healed enough to go back into your physical body and the awareness of this lifetime. And you do this, of course, by going through the gates representing your chakras. And you may, at the gate, again pick up the backpack that you left behind. You may not be aware that you are doing this, and this is okay. But you may also find yourself at some point that you actually suddenly hesitate and you realize you have a choice. Will I pick up the backpack or will I leave it there? And then you might decide to leave it and come back to your normal awareness with a lighter feeling on not carrying so much weight. You may at some point even find that you have dissolved the backpacks, that you have no backpacks, and you can again do the exercise and walk through the doors without having to leave anything behind because you have already transformed it. And so, what I want to leave you with is that the most difficult part of being an embodiment on earth is that we cannot truly accept divine love. And many times this is because that original birth trauma was so shocking to us that it made us feel that if God really loved us, He should not have allowed us to go through this trauma. He should not have allowed us to receive such a trauma. He should somehow have protected us. And it is an enigma. It is an enigma that takes some contemplation, some acceleration, some challenging your paradigms, some challenging the ideas that the fallen beings have put out there about an angry God or a remote God or no God, until you realize that you chose to come into embodiment. You knew the conditions on this planet. You had a sense that it would be difficult. You could not know exactly how difficult, because we cannot know how we experience a situation by projecting into the future. So you cannot know until you experience it exactly how you will react. But the reason why you chose to go into the situation was, of course, first of all, that you had a positive purpose for coming to Earth. But it was also because you knew that whatever trauma you might receive from coming into embodiment on Earth, you could be free of it again. It could not truly destroy you or change you or touch you. It might be in your perception that it would touch you, but it could not touch the formless being that you truly are. And therefore you knew that whatever happened could be undone by you when you had the knowledge, when you had the help. You also knew that there would be ascended masters and representatives of the Divine Mother who were ready to help you, as it has now been my privilege to offer my help to you. And therefore you knew, as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. You knew that what happens in a material realm of Earth is just like what is going on a theater. It is not real. You know that when you are in a theater, you may be deeply affected by the play. You may have an emotional reaction. It may stir thoughts in your mind. But you're not identified with the play. You do not think you are one of the players on the stage. Even if you are in a performance and you are one of the actors, you may live yourself into the character. But you know that once you leave the stage, you will come out of it again. And so the reason why you have been identified with earth was that the original birth trauma was so severe that it caused you to think it had changed you and that you had now become this wounded being. And this has caused you to identify yourself with the character you have played in all of your embodiments. But what you can accomplish by using this exercise a sufficient number of times is come to the point where you no longer identify yourself with that original character that was hit, that was hurt in the original birth trauma. And neither do you identify yourself with any of the other roles you have played in other embodiments. And neither do you fully identify yourself with the role you are playing in this embodiment. And when you come to that point, then you gain a new mental freedom where you realize that yes, you were born into a certain family, a certain nation, a certain culture. This has a certain history that goes back in time. You were affected by your environment. You were affected by your genes. But beyond this, you have also had many past lifetimes that have affected you. But all of this has now been resolved to a point where it is not going to define the course of the rest of your time in embodiment. You are free to choose whom you will be for the rest of this lifetime. And it is my greatest joy to offer my help to bring you to that point of mental, emotional, identity, and physical freedom. Mother Mary, I am, and I am forever your divine mother.